Good morning. Where is everybody?
Good morning. They're probably tired from the cold weather, sleeping.
Driving a bus.
I know Belinda is under her desk right now trying to catch a nap.
And now I can talk. It's high-tech stuff.
I think everyone misses the breakfast. That's what it is.
The cheery food, all right.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Hi, Dave.
Morning, Dave.
How you doing?
Is anyone dialing in?
Maybe one or two people do.
Never heard this group so quiet. The power of the mute button, right?
Rested.
Everybody definitely needs a little bit of rest, I'm sure. This has been one heck of a year, right?
I think it's shell shock.
Oh, Jacques, I love it. I love
Heck
it.
of a couple years.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Tell you, it's definitely been crazy, but look, I'll use the term adversity, but one of the best things out of adversity is innovation and just coming up with new ways of doing things, right? That's where growth happens. Just simply talking to folks across multiple districts, it seems like even more and more transportation departments are getting a bigger and bigger voice within their districts, and that's definitely a good thing.
Have you all been meeting virtually all year, or is this just because of the uptick in the pandemic?
Dave, I just got on. I'm not sure if you were asking if we were planning virtual all year. We did set aside for last month, this month, and I believe one in the spring, right, Claudine? We had to read that we're gonna do at the firehouse, but
Yeah, the firehouse is closed through April 1st now, so
Yeah.
we're back to virtual at this point.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
How you been, Jerry?
pretty good. It's busy every day. If not dispatching or training or 19A work or driving, I'm driving a bus. So
Driving a bus?
pretty much, yeah.
You don't have your own run, you don't have your own run, do you, Jerry?
No.
Thank God.
It was in the beginning of the year I did though.
We're getting to a point here where we've been lucky so far, but we're getting to a point here in Saratoga where we're gonna be cutting runs. Because I've had 6 people resign since December.
Oh, wow.
6 drivers and 2 bus assistants moved on to other jobs. And we got some snowbirds and a couple people resigned for other jobs. They think driving a garbage truck sounds better. So,
As if driver shortages haven't plagued the industry for several years. It definitely is ramping up, right?
yeah.
Did they go on to other driving jobs?
One of my guys is leaving for driving for county waste, which I guess has a big bonus and pays more and,
Yeah.
Jeff, I have to say, I just had a meeting with one of my drivers last week for the same thing, was telling me that he was going to work for, gonna leave me for the
Yep. I think.
Jerry, you turn your mic off.
Turn your mic off there for a minute, I guess. Jerry, your mic is off.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
I'm not sure what happened, but he ended up staying. So
Yeah. We have a
my-
mechanic, one of my mechanics was just offered a job at UPS down in Latham. He's gonna be making close to $75,000 a year to start with full benefits and a sign-on bonus. So he's going through the vetting process right now, and I expect his letter of resignation soon.
I'm sorry,
So-
where was this?
UPS, yeah, sign me up. Yep, UPS in Latham, he's gonna be a mechanic. Even Al Karam can't pay that kind of money.
I was gonna say though, Jeff, that says a lot about you that somebody came to you before they were giving a resignation letter.
Oh, don't believe half of what you hear from me.
No, these are important points you all raising, and hopefully that they'll be raised again today. So our guests can hear that. We really need to advocate for a school bus specific license that you can't use outside the yellow bus industry.
That's a great idea. because
really
we might
need
be
to
able to
get
shorten
that.
the training too.
Yeah, because I can foresee coming after February the 7th, people are going to come to us for that free training and then get out there and go other places. I mean, they're already doing that to an extent, but I can see that accelerating even more because it's going to cost more. I'm assuming after February the 7th because of the length of time that the ELDT is going to take,
Yep.
more so than what it is now. So yeah, I'd like to see that yellow S endorsement only that you can drive a bus with or your own car, and that's it.
Well, and I think what the governor did recently here with the third-party testing is a step in the right direction in terms of getting road tests, but I'm not sure how I feel about the other recent change that just came about with you not having to check underneath the hoods for your pre-trip inspection. I don't see how that's going to get us more drivers.
Well,
I'd rather see them hold back on entry-level driver training.
yeah. Don't you find it a little contradictory, Jeff, that,
Yes, I do.
you're not going to check under the hood, but now we got to put you through 30 hours of,
Yep.
or however many hours of theory and it contradicts the whole purpose. So,
Yeah,
Well, I think the under the hood is a step in the right direction. I would really like to see them expand that to the underneath components of the bus that's commonly inspected by mechanics. When you read the position that the USDOT used to issue the waiver, that was pretty much their whole position is, hey, in the school bus industry, most of the time, those parts are or inspected by the maintenance staff. So there's really no need for the driver to have to be able to demonstrate their proficiency in inspecting them.
Exactly. And most school districts, I don't even think have their drivers do that anymore. As part of their pre-trip inspection. We don't, we do it once a week. Once a week, we have our drivers check underneath the hoods and do their pre-trip. But the rest of the time, we have one of our, we have a driver cleaner who goes out and checks fluids on a daily basis, on a rotating basis.
So Jeff, how is that tracked? I mean, is it like a paper process? Do they have a site for that?
I'm sorry, how does what track?
You said, most districts might not be doing it daily. You're doing it once a week. I mean, how is it tracked so that you can go back and I guess maybe I'm asking the question incorrectly, but if it's not being done consistent, how does one go in and say it's being done and be able to go back, say, for an audit?
Well, yeah, on our DVIR, there's a checkbox on there that every Friday the driver must check that when they complete their underhood check. And then our driver cleaner that goes out and does all the checks on a rotating basis, he has a spreadsheet that he uses and keeps track of everything that he does and all the fluids that he adds. So on a weekly basis, the fluid is checked on all the buses. We've been doing it for several years that way, and it's worked out well for us.
And is that done on paper?
That's done on paper, yeah. Yeah, because when he's out there pulling his wagon around, I got to get him a golf cart, but he's out there pulling the wagon around and got all of his fluids, and he's got a clipboard, and he keeps track of it. And we keep track of that and everything, and it's worked out well for us for several years. And our drivers don't do an under the hood check 4 days a week. So, yeah, some people might do it. They might, if they still want to do it, they can do it.
Yeah.
So.
Now, what is the harm? Yeah, I can make assumptions, but what is the harm if it's not done thoroughly? I mean, a driver looking under the hood, I mean, this is basic stuff, right? I mean, this isn't looking for something, it's more about the obvious.
Yeah.
Hey, guys,
it's just-
I don't want to cut you short, but we have some legislators on right now, and Belinda's here to take over running the meeting. So for this, we can continue this conversation afterwards, but to make sure that we have take into consideration the value of the time of our legislators. I'm going to turn it over to Belinda to try to get our meeting started right now. And we can continue this at the end if you'd like. I welcome the open conversation.
No problem, Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jerry. Sorry, I had some stuff to do, so I just got to hop on, so I wasn't even sure what I missed yet. But we do have some legislators here that were able to join us today, so thank you so much. I believe we have somebody from Senator Jordan's office that joined us today. Is that right, Patrick? Are you?
That's right. Yep. I'm Senator's Legislative Director.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And Assemblyman John McDonald, I see, is here. Thank you for being here. We do have Assemblywoman Walsh and Assemblywoman Fahey. Someone from their office was supposed to join us. I'm not sure if they were able to or not. So at this time, though, we do have Executive Director Dave Christopher with us. And Andre Claridge is also here. So I would like to go ahead and turn it over to them, and they're going to tell us what NIAF has been working on our behalf. And then once we're done, I didn't see you, Mike. I'm so sorry. Mike from Senator Tedisco's office is here. I'm so sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to skip you.
That's all right.
So after then, once Dave and Andre are done, we can finish the conversation that I walked into because it sounded very interesting. I do like the idea of school bus only license, a school bus only endorsement. That sounded really good. So we could definitely talk about those things. So without further ado, Dave, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to you. Was I just muted the whole time?
David's muted. It looks
Oh,
like.
Dave is
Yeah,
muted.
Dave's muted.
Actually, I'm muted. There, is that better? Can you hear me now? The wonders of technology, right? Again, thank you for the opportunity. We've got a lot to talk about. We've been pretty busy the last few months, to say the least. A lot going on. Mostly, pandemic related, but also there's some new stuff. So I did do a PowerPoint just to to allow us to follow along. I believe you all got the legislative agenda. I sent it out to Jerry earlier this week, and did y'all receive that? Everyone have that? Hopefully you did. So we'll share the screen. And are you seeing my words come up on the bottom of the screen as I talk?
Yes.
That's odd. I don't know how that got turned on, but
It's closed captioning. It's pretty neat.
yeah, it is kind of neat. I just have to watch what I say, I guess. But at any rate, thank you again. So I'll go through the legislative agenda and then we can have a conversation. Let me just go here. The wonders of technology. There we go. Okay. Well, first we'll talk about the legislative priorities. Some of these you've heard before, but certainly, we want to keep them on the list because a couple things here really need to get done. First and foremost, I guess, criminal trespass and security on a school bus. We have talked about this for years. This has been an issue that has been on our agenda for many, many years. We're trying to put a little more emphasis and a little more discussion on the table this year because there's been some incidents nationally that are kind of scary. We've had a school bus driver who was stabbed to death in Washington State this year, and we've had a driver assaulted by parents dragged off a bus and assaulted in New Orleans this year. And it's received a lot of national attention, and we certainly are concerned that it's something that needs to be addressed in our state because, people are stressed out and, we need to do things to protect our drivers. We feel this is one of the items that would help us in recruitment and retainment of bus drivers. Certainly, we need to do all we can to provide a safe environment for our drivers. And this is something that I think needs a little attention this year. The passing stop school bus legislation is simply the item that we've kept on the books for years to look at the fines for passing stop school buses. This continues to be an issue as evidenced by what we're seeing with our stop arm camera programs across the state. Those are very successful programs, by the way, and they do work, but people are still passing stop school buses and putting kids in danger. So we want to continue to look at that and find ways to deal with that through fines and greater outreach. Lap shoulder belts on school buses. There's a couple legislators who are looking at that last year, and of course we anticipate this year they'll discuss it with us as well. We've actually had several meetings with Assemblyman Avenatti. Did I say that right, Andre? I think I did.
Yeah.
And to kind of school them up on what that means. We're certainly, in favor of lap shoulder belts. That's a NIAP position. However, there's a lot to do to make that happen so that, school buses are safe and certainly done in such a way that it makes sense financially. So we'll continue to discuss that given, what's going on with the pandemic and, a lot of other priorities has kind of gone on the back burner, but it is certainly something that we're concerned about.
Yeah, Dave, if I could just add, that's Senator Melnick also has that bill in the Senate, and there are a number of concerns with the bill. I mean, the concept, as you said, is, you're embracing, but in terms of the specifics of the bill, it needs to be amended, and Senator Melnick is, has those points that we sent them. So they have yet to amend the bill, though.
Exactly. Article 19A disqualification, that's simply a position that we take that we want to make sure that our Article 19A disqualification, the crimes therein are updated regularly when the legislature adds a crime to the penal law. We want to make sure that if that's something that a crime that we want to apply to 19A, that it's looked at. So it's kind of the way that works is apparently there's no division or section of DMV that looks out for this, but it's when it comes to somebody's attention, you know, it's looked at and added to 19A through legislative action. So we want to make sure that we continue to be watching that as well. Under mandate relief, we continue to ask for the 55-mile-an-hour speed limitation to be lifted for school buses. That's the state ed regulation. And simply, we want school buses to be able to travel the same posted speed limits. It's really that simple. Strobe lights on school buses. This is the Pete Tunney initiative. Pete has strobe lights, as you know, and they're an excellent way to make sure the motoring public sees the school bus on the highways. I know lots of times on a weekend I'll cross one of the highway bridges here in my town, and I'll see one of Pete's buses coming up the Northway at a mile or two away early on a Saturday morning, heading out to a sports trip or something. So they're actually very useful, and we just want to try to change that law that restricts their use during different type of weather situations, and be able to use them at all times. Shared services is another item of mandate relief that we'd like to see looked at in terms of our ability to share services with other districts and not be penalized for the revenue that we bring in. ASBO has a recommendation that a school district who is involved in shared services keep 10% of the revenue. That might be a middle ground to get this done so that those school districts that want to get into the shared services business can do so and not be penalized. Civil service portability has risen to the top this year. There's several school transportation directors who have moved to different school districts, and in some cases they've had to be retested. They hold the title in county A, and they want to move to school district B, and the county that they're moving into ask them to take another civil service test. So we want to look at this and try to find a way to make that title portability portable, very similar, but not the same as what the school facilities directors have, but something that allows, quite simply, school district transportation director to move from school district to school district without having to be retested. Next is ignition interlock systems. Again, this is just kind of a statement more than anything else. For years, there have been bills to put ignition interlocks on school buses. We're opposed to that. It seems anytime there's a bus driver that is caught DUI on a school bus, this comes up. If you want to see a bus driver shortage, I think put this law in place, and I think you'll really see one. We really want to be careful not to punish all school bus drivers because of the bad actors out there. So we certainly do oppose that, and hope that we won't have to address it this year or any year. So under the state budget priorities, we're looking forward to the governor's budget coming out soon. As you all know, it is almost an annual affair where we have to fight to keep expense-based aid formula in the budget. We are signaled this year that will not be a problem. I certainly hope that's the case, because that would really hurt school transportation operators who depend on that transportation aid. And again, we're hopeful that that won't come out of the governor's budget this year. Universal pre-K is ramping up all across our state. We're looking at some support to get state aid for universal pre-K. Assemblymember Fahey has been a champion of this for years, and we've certainly supported that, and we'd like to see that happen. I always tell the story of a school district that does transportation for pre-K age students, and they don't have aid, or they're not aided for it or given monitors for it, and the bus drivers actually secure the bus, get off the bus, and put the pre-K student up on the seat and secure him in a seat belt and start the bus up and take off down the road. That's a lot to ask of a school bus driver, and I think we need to look at properly aiding universal pre-K. And next was the school bus monitor piece. Again, this is a driver recruitment and retainment issue. There are some School bus routes that need monitors, and school districts do that, do provide monitors at their own expense. They're not an aidable expense. And we believe it's time to really take a serious look at this. This is not a mandate to put monitors on all school buses, but a permissive kind of legislation that would allow aid if a school district determines that a monitor is necessary on a particular bus, and this would allow them to do that at a shared expense. Again, 3-4 years ago, NIAPT partnered with NAPT and school boards to do a school bus driver study on shortage issue. And one of the things that came out of that was student management. People shy away from the business of school bus driving because they don't want to manage the students. They feel that's a difficult task along with driving a school bus. So we feel that, if there's ability to put monitors on bus where needed, not in all cases, but on a case-by-case basis, that would be helpful. During the executive closures, if you all recall, there was a lot of discussion about whether state aid would be paid on the expenses of school transportation, school districts who kept their school transportation operations running during the closures, and that was never really resolved. We did get some additional aid for delivery of meals and textbooks and other kinds of expenses for a couple months, but there was really no resolution on the entire issue of paying state aid during the executive closure. I think that proved to be a bad decision, because when schools reopened, many of the schools that closed down their operations and private contractors were unable to restart promptly enough to provide service in September. So this really needs to be looked at in case of another extended closure. It came up during our discussions. What about natural disasters? When Hurricane Sandy came through Long Island and it wiped the island out for almost a month, they were closed for a month. So will that also be applied to natural disasters type of situations in the future? It just needs to be resolved, because these things do happen. State aid for equipment for what we call pathogen risk. As one of the things we learned from the pandemic was air quality is very important on school buses, and the solution was to open the windows on the bus and clean the air. But I guess that worked okay during the pandemic, initial pandemic, but it seems kind of embarrassing to tell parents and communities that's how we clean the air on school buses. There's equipment now available to clean air on school buses. There's companies out there who are continually looking at this and developing different solutions. Clean air in schools is a huge issue, something that's really been focused on during the pandemic. And we're just simply looking for the same recognition of the importance of clean air on school buses and the ability to pay state aid for equipment that may be installed on school buses. Currently, there's one solution of air filtration system that is available, and several school districts apparently are interested in it and have in some cases installed it, but they're not. It's not a state aidable item, so we'd like that looked at as well. In terms of school transportation safety, we're asking to increase the SCD School Bus Driver Training Fund to $600,000. It's been at $400,000 for several years, and our state director, Paul Overbaugh, has done a great job in using that money to update training curriculum and to do some very positive things. But there's many other things that need to be done in terms of training. For instance, an entry-level driver training theory course could have been done by SCD had the money been available. So we're asking for that to be looked at again this year. In the past, when we've tried to go down this road, we found out that state ed hadn't spent all the $400,000. Well, we got that done. They've spent the $400,000. So I think it's time to take a serious look at the training from state ed and, you know, update some of our curriculums and provide, you know, updated curriculums for other types of training initiatives. In terms of the bus driver shortage issue, we're asking for a tax credit for school bus driver personnel, much similar to what is provided to teachers, firemen, EMS workers, et cetera, who there's some, you know, significant outlay of money for candidates to become school bus drivers. In some cases, certainly school districts and contractors pay for a lot of the training piece costs, but you know, when you look at the time of driving back and forth, time studying, time preparing, permits, physicals, there's a lot of money involved in this, and many people come into the bus driving business without a lot of money in their pocket. So we think this will help somewhat. Understand all of these things that we're proposing for school bus driver shortage solutions are not in and of themselves a solution, but collectively they may help. Next, eliminate the earnings cap for the state retirees who drive school buses. We got, you know, some good feedback from the governor at the state of the state on this. We were very excited to see this. We've talked to the governor's office a few times about this. I know Senator Martucci has also championed this, had a bill out in September to try to get this done. In many school districts, there are retirees, state retirees who do work as school bus drivers, and they have to watch their, you know, their time, because once they hit the $35,000, they have to lay off. And in this day and age, we can't afford to have a school bus driver laid off for any reason. And this is really not a harmful ask. You know, school bus drivers, state retirees are not going to get rich driving school buses, but we certainly want people who, you know, held state jobs, you know, retired firemen, police officers, the kind of people we want behind the wheel, and we want to do everything we can do to make that happen.
Yeah, Dave, if I could just interject there.
Sure.
Just a little bit more information. So yeah, we did a lot of work with the governor's office, and it really all started and emanated from this Senator Martucci's legislation, which he introduced. So we were very glad to see that, as Dave said, come out in the state of the state, a real big victory for the industry. Since that time, I know Senator Martucci has met with Governor Hochul and staff. He has also been approached by Senator Shelley Mayer and other folks in the majority interested in helping get this over the goal line, including folks in the assembly. So I think we got some momentum here, and I also think we're probably going to start seeing some union support in the near future. So you know, I think all the, you know, sort of ducks are getting in a row, so to speak, and this could be a real nice victory for the industry. And like you said, it's not, there's no silver bullet that's going to solve all the problems here, but you know, all these things add up, and hopefully we can make a dent in you know, the driver shortage problem.
Exactly, that's good news. Next, we'll talk about school bus electrification. This is certainly a huge issue in our state. You know, the governor's state of the state, she mentioned electrifying the entire bus fleet by 2035, and having only EV buses purchased by 2027 in our state. Certainly, we want to try to support the state's initiatives to bring EVs into the industry. However, you know, we have been very clear that the cost is an issue, and the state really needs to help out in terms of the cost of initial purchase and infrastructure. One of the solutions that have been tossed around is increasing the lease option from 5 years to 10 years in our state. And certainly we're supportive of that. The one piece of that that we discovered as we looked into this was that the dealer networks in our state that we're so used to dealing with, that we're so dependent on to make sure that our bus fleets run properly, need to be supported. We're not supportive of direct sales for school buses from the manufacturer. And we certainly would support, some of the proposals for school bus electrification, as long as the dealer support network is kept in place in our state. So I don't know, Andre, if you want to add to that. I know, you're doing a lot of work on that as well.
Yeah, that's a big, that could be a big problem. And it's a very complex issue from a lot of stakeholders' perspectives, not necessarily the industry's perspective, but there's a lot of money and there are a lot of groups, businesses and organizations and interest groups from all over the country, interested in direct sales. And what it really is a subsidy. It's a subsidy for those companies who are starting up and trying to break into the industry. And not necessarily the types of companies, school districts want to deal directly with. They don't have the experience, the decades of experience building school buses and making sure they're safe and making sure they go through all the rigors, of safety tests and things of that nature, whether mandated or otherwise. We're working closely with a lot of these big money groups that are pushing this agenda, who are fueled by the emotion of an all green school bus fleet, yet they fail to remember all the great work that they've done along the way. The EPA regulations and Clean Air Acts of various years, which have basically gotten the clean diesel down to almost a near zero emission vehicle. So all that gets lost in the fray in this sort of emotional push to get us to all electric when, we've got to pump the brakes, so to speak, and get our elected officials in the governor's office and these groups to understand that you can't just flip a switch and all of a sudden everything's all electric and it's going to be, no impact to the state fiscal plan. Well, this could be a $2 billion a year fixed cost for the state fiscal plan. So if the state's willing to do that, then great, let's rock and roll. But also, the state's got to take into consideration, what if you have a blackout? What if the grid can't handle it? So 2 billion here could be 10 billion statewide, just for school buses. Do the math on another 700,000 commercial vehicles. Do the math on 6 million autos, and all of a sudden, you've got a grid that just can't handle that kind of load. And that's one example. So, we're working. We're a small player in this huge environmental movement, and NIAP and even the School Bus Contractors Association and the Bus Distributors Association and various manufacturers, they're all embracing the green movement, so to speak, but it has to be within the realm of reality. So one of those realms is, don't dismiss, and most folks in the legislature don't even realize that NIAP members, school districts, probably are part of one of the largest and most impactful public-private partnerships, unstated, across the state, and that's with school bus distributors. If we didn't have school bus distributors, which are much different than an auto dealer, it's a totally different model. You can't compare the two. But if we didn't have the school bus dealership model that we have today, you would basically be saying, all right, school districts, now what you need to do is employ thousands of people across the state. Everybody needs to have mechanics. Everybody needs to have education and training experts on all these platforms, electric school buses. You need to have all these parts warehouses, at your facilities. You need to have all these, these bays to fix your school buses if you have them or don't have them now. So it's a real, from an infrastructure standpoint, a cost standpoint, there's so much value to that public-private partnership. You can take one bus distributor, plop it in the middle of 20 school districts, and that one distributor can service all those school districts. If you go direct sales and this model goes away, then basically what you're saying is, school districts, you're on your own, and you have a problem with your bus, call the manufacturer. Well, good luck with that. We know how that's going to work out. So it's a very sort of esoteric sort of topic for most people in the state of New York, even the legislature. So we've got to do our job to educate how important making sure that these upstart companies and these all electric companies play by the same rules that the state of New York has set forth for the school bus dealerships. And it's a very important model because safety is number one. And there are so many rules and regulations and laws that these dealers have to follow, from DMV to DOT to SED, OGS, you name it. There's so many state entities involved here, making sure that New York's school transportation system and the yellow school bus remains the safest mode of transportation for the 2.3 million kids who ride a school bus to and from school each day.
Dave, can I jump on this issue of electrification right quick?
Sure.
The one piece also that is should be of huge concern, when I read the governor's comments that we're going to start buying only EVs in 2027. For example, we have a run that goes to Rochester twice a week. Now, just think about that. If I no longer have gasoline or diesel powered vehicles to run, 460-mile round trip, I'm not sure how many buses out there can do that in a day. And there's still a lack of charging infrastructure. And we also got to take into consideration what works in big cities may not work in suburbia, may not work out in rural areas either. When it comes to all that, I think we need to put the brakes on. I appreciate Andre's comments and think of this entire electrification issue in much more detail and not force people to just drop gasoline and diesel and just concentrate on EVs only. It's not going to work. In the long term, it's not going to work. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, we've been delivering that message to pretty much everyone we talk to. There's certainly application for electric vehicles, and certainly, the industry should support that. But there's certainly issues that need to be resolved in terms of, distance, as you spoke of, Al, and, availability of charging stations, and which will increase with, the federal initiatives that are happening. But to completely eliminate all fossil fuel school bus type vehicles is going to be difficult, if not impossible. Anything else on bus electrification? So I took all of the items that I felt we felt that address the bus driver shortage issue. Tried to put them on one slide just so that we can focus on those, because it really is that really is the big issue today. Without a good core of school bus drivers in our state, all the EVs and other initiatives we've got on the table really don't mean much. So these are the kinds of things that we need to really look at in terms of trying to recruit and retain school bus drivers, among other things. Certainly, these are all legislative items, but there's certainly things that we can do locally, revolve around pay and benefits, obviously, and working conditions, and all those kinds of things to try to attract people to the industry. Changing the perception of the bus driver's job as well are all things that we can do as an association and as local leaders. But legislative, these are some things that we feel would be important to focus on to try to address this bus driver shortage issue, which is just, it's devastating some schools. Someone spoke earlier about the attention the school transportation operations are getting. They're getting the attention because we finally through the pandemic hit the bottom, and it's directly affecting the ability to educate kids. And we really need to look at some of these things to try to support the industry and turn it around to going forward, and take it, give it a serious look. So hopefully we can do that through, just better awareness and education, and certainly the assistance of legislators like yourselves. We're very happy to talk about third-party testing. That was not on our legislative agenda, although it's been discussed. We have had discussions about this dating back to August. This is something that all of the stakeholders in the industry have been asking for. Contractors Association, ABA, which is the transit and the coach business, and ourselves. We had a meeting way back in August with the governor's deputy secretary of transportation to talk about this. This was an unrehearsed meeting, by the way, and all three groups said, hey, we need third-party testing. And the governor's office has listened to us. As of yesterday, obviously, the announcement came out and it looks like it's gonna move forward. So we're very excited about this. We think this will really positively impact the school bus driver shortage in that we can get a more prompt test now and take some of the load off DMV, which historically is, been difficult to get a quick test. So hopefully this will help us. We're looking forward to commenting on the 26th in support of this and see where it takes us. I guess now we can just have some discussion and answer some questions and go from there.
Dave, on the third party, are we talking about certified 19A examiners that work for school districts being allowed to do that?
Well, I think that would be one of the steps. The feds actually lay out the qualifications to do this. And, Karim can talk to that because he's a third-party tester, Karim Johnson. But you need to meet some qualifications. You need to do some training. I would tell you that it's not going to be an easy lift for yourselves if you decide you want to do this, because it does require some training, some continued qualification and continued oversight and some paperwork. For some operators, it probably makes sense. For others, it may not. There's also a number of tests that you have to complete per year. So if you're a very small operation and maybe you only hire one or two drivers, you would not qualify for that. But here's the deal from my perspective. If some of the bigger operators get involved in this and successfully put their people through the program and test, it lightens the load for DMV. So some of the smaller operators can get appointments more promptly at DMV. So I see it as a positive, whether you're in it or not. I think it's going to be an individual decision in terms of if you want to qualify as a third-party tester or not. But I think it's a positive thing, and we applaud the governor for doing this. We've talked about this for a long time. We had meetings with DMV. When Andre called me yesterday and said, "Hey, this is going to happen," I was shocked that it happened so quickly. I'm happy it did.
Dave, I think Assemblyman McDonald has a hand raised. He might have a
John, go
question for you.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hey, just, I think, a comment and a question. In regards to the earnings cap, I have had conversations, particularly with CSEA, only because I've carried the bill in the past to raise it from 30 to 35,000, and it took me 5 years to do it because CSEA historically has had reservations about that for fear of displacing some of their jobs. The other public unions are very supportive because their average salaries are much higher. But when you look at labor and some of the entry-level positions, you can see where there's a concern. And I respect that concern. I will say I've had good conversations with CSEA. They're not shutting the door on it. It helped. And I think Belinda was there. And I know Senator Disco was there when we did the drive around back in the fall, when the president of the local union of CSEA said we need to raise the earnings cap. I said, if your member is asking for it, that's the only reason why I brought it up. So, I think there's some hope. I don't know if anyone in the assembly has actually introduced the bill. I will follow up on that. But, I do think there's some realistic potential here because let's face it, there's a lot of, I just look here in the Capital Region, a lot of public employees. They get at 55, they've still got a good 10 years. And Dave, to your point, I can't tell you how many Cohoes firefighters I know are retired and going on to drive school buses. So I think that's something that, we could get a modest increase, maybe up to 40 or 45 and go from there. the criminal trespass on school bus, I agree with it. I don't know if anyone's working on the assembly. I will tell you, it's always a heavy lift to increase penalties in our house, but as a follow-up after this meeting, I'd be happy to have a discussion, see where it's at and see what we can do. I think unfortunately, we need to illustrate the problem. I get it. I'm actually considering legislation, a different aspect on referees and umpires and officials who get abused during their job. So there's no doubt it's happening, and
Yeah.
the way we are in society, it's more challenging. And in the beginning, before the official meeting started, there was some chatter going on about this. And I don't know much about it, but this yellow S endorsement for school bus drivers, and would that be an effective thing? And I'm just kind of curious, is that in the works in other states? Is that something that's novel here, or what is that all about?
Well, the school bus specific license is not in place. The waiver the federal waiver that just came out. Are you familiar with that, John? The federal waiver that just came out a week ago that said that states may opt into eliminating the under hood check for
Right.
their road tests, their CDL road tests. And the thought behind that was that it would bring more drivers into the business because they no longer have to do that. So, and that was from some pressure they were receiving in terms of the difficulty of the road test, and it goes back to the school bus specific road test, which school bus specific license, which would reduce some of the training and some of the items that drivers need to know when they take their road test. Because when you take a BPS road test, you're tested on a lot of things that you never do as a school bus driver in day-to-day operations. One of those is look under the hood. So I can tell you that in talks with DMV, and I'm sure most of you know, DMV is not opting into that waiver right now because New York DMV, because there's some legal and some technical issues that they're insurmountable for them at this point. They're going to continue to talk to FMCSA to see if we can get around some of that stuff. But I think it brings to attention the entire issue of the school bus specific license, which is something that has been talked about, particularly with the National Contractor Association for a long time. I had a conversation with them a while back, and I'm sure others. I don't know, Peter. I saw Peter Manella here. I don't know if any PT is doing anything with that or not. There he is. Hi, Peter. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think has to have some discussion and to try to move it forward. Now, certainly there's some drawbacks to that, that if we do a school bus specific license, you're likely not going to be going out of New York State with that license because it's restrictive. You'll get a K restriction. And I think it's, an individual school district decision. I've heard both pros and cons when the waiver came out that we wouldn't want a school bus specific license because it's too restrictive, and others say absolutely. So I think we need to have discussion about it so we can learn more about it. We're actually doing a webinar next week, and that's one of the questions to be on the webinar. What do you think of the school bus driver restriction license, specific license? So I'd be more than happy to listen here. And if there's any of you that can explain that better to John, please do. I think I covered it, but that's the essence of it. The current license, John, the CDL BPS, allows you to drive a school bus and trucks and coach buses and transit buses. And quite honestly, a school bus driver doesn't need to know all the things or do all the things that a transit driver or truck driver needs to do. And the thought is, if we water down that license, I don't like to use that word because I don't want you to suggest that it's going to be a less safe driver. But if we made it easier to get that license, that more closely reflected what the driver actually does as a school bus driver, it would attract people to the industry.
It would also save what we're doing, our efforts, right, and the money that we're expending to train school bus drivers who in turn turn around and are siphoned off by Upstate Coach, Brown Buses, Premier, CDTA, US Foods. I've lost a lot of drivers to those entities. So we train them for free and then they go drive trucks in charters somewhere else. So a specific bus license would negate all that. And frankly, in terms of going out of state or not, that's minuscule in the overall operation that we do. And I'd give that up. I don't care. I'll throw them on a charter if you want to go across the state for a trip, whatever. But we need, the drivers to stay with us, or if they don't like driving a school bus anymore and they want to go drive for US Foods, then let US Foods or CDTA down in Albany fork out for training for their specific vehicles. That's really the gist of it.
Well, what's attractive to it is it's not only an attraction tool, but potentially it's a retention tool as well. To your point, Al, and you brought that up at the press event a couple months ago.
Well, the out of state is a consideration, especially for those districts that border, or even the capital region. Like I send field trips to Boston, not Boston, but Massachusetts. So if you start cycling in those drivers and eventually you get to a point where you have drivers that have intrastate restrictions and they can't leave New York, that will hinder the educational programs of the school district because they won't have the flexibility to use their own buses to transport those students to those activities that do cross state lines. So I think in the conversation, that should be one of those things that are considered, that if we do that school bus specific license, that we do have some provisions to cross state lines when doing extracurricular trips.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't think anyone is saying that the current license should go away, but just an option for a school bus specific for those carriers who it would be valuable. When you think about it, if you're in central New York and you're running a small operation and you really don't go much out of your district, you've got to adhere to all of the federal CDL regulations in terms of training and testing as someone on the border who does go out of state a lot, or does run a different kind of operation. So it may have value for them.
Assemblyman, if I could, Andre Claridge here with PC Public Affairs. I also work with Andrew Rush, who speaks very highly of you.
Somebody else, yeah.
What's that?
I fooled somebody else, yeah.
Just to go back on the earnings cap legislation, Senator Martucci introduced that in response to some constituents, some state troopers who were running into that problem down in his district. And so I believe Brian Miller is the assemblyman who picked it up also. It wasn't something that we initiated, but given our close relationship with Senator Martucci, I noticed that he introduced the bill, and I said, hey, this would be something great for the industry. Would you mind us championing this with the governor's office? And so that's what we did. So we weren't looking to, we understand the process. So we weren't looking to not include folks. I think it just happened really quickly. So there's definitely room from a legislative perspective to have a majority leader champion this. So we haven't reached out to anyone in the assembly, and I don't think Senator Martucci has either. I believe a couple members of assembly have reached out to him, but I could get you those names if you want. But we certainly would love to have a majority member champion something similar to this in the legislature, if it doesn't get done in the budget, for sure.
Happy to, let's stay in touch on that. I'd be happy to do it. I just, being through it before, I already know where the pitfalls are, so I'd rather deal with the pitfalls.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Everyone can enjoy his success.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of the arguments with CSEA is because there's such a lack of bus drivers, your members are getting beaten to death trying to fill bus runs, and many of them are working extra hours that they don't want to work because they feel an obligation to do so.
Well, Well, and
I-
to the point earlier, Dave, you're losing those members now and you're not filling those spots.
Right,
So
right.
it's a real problem, you know?
Yeah, and many members are leaving because they're just burned out. You know, they didn't sign on to be, 40-hour drivers. You know, they signed on for the niche work, a few hours a week, and, they're asked to do much, much more than whatever. But in school bus drivers, for the most part, certainly there are exceptions, they will step up, and some of them are just getting tired. So this is a way to try to bolster up the group until we can get through this terrible shortage. Anything else for legislative discussions or school bus driver specific? And it's interesting to hear about the school bus driver specific piece. That's really something that has to be done at the federal level, but certainly we're going to be discussing it. I don't know, Peter, is NAPT doing anything with that? Are they proposing to do anything with that, or? Oh, you're muted. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, NAPT has done some work with the NSTA on that issue, a little bit more nuanced approach to it. Mike and the board proposed something FMCSA that had 4 different elements in it, including, by the way, postponing the February 7th new training requirements, but I'm not sure that's going anywhere. But the position on the licensing was less on the school bus specific and more on redefining what the skills are that you need for a school bus driving license. Would affect the S endorsement. And I apologize, I can't go into the details sitting here without looking at the source, but we're involved in that discussion with NSTA at the federal level as well. So, but this is a big issue for the legislators who are on an ability to make it possible to get more drivers. You've heard it 100 times today. Probably the critical issue of the day.
Yeah. I know one of the discussions that always comes up is if we were to do a school bus specific license, or to try to more clearly define the skill set and the skills that the school bus driver needs to do. What are those? We continue to hear, well, just the under the hood. And I know, Karim, you said under the body, the brake test and those kind of things, but what are the specific items that you would take out of the current BPS skill set and to create the school bus specific license? Or can we identify that? That really is what we're continually asked when we bring this up. What would it look like?
And one other area of concern with that is also the upgrading. So right now you take a 30-year truck driver that comes off the road, want to do local, decides, hey, I want to drive a school bus. Well, you're taking someone that's been on the road all these years and saying, hey, you got to go through the whole process from start to finish to add the upgrade to your license. And I think that in these conversations that also should be addressed, because I think, have given the CDL test as a third-party tester, that skill set is different. You don't need to give them a extensive pre-trip and have them name the parts. They've been driving truck for 30 years. They know the parts of a vehicle. You don't need to have for them to do a skills test. They can handle a 60-foot vehicle. So, redefining even the upgrade process, as well as we discussed the school bus specific, or redefining the S endorsement, would be helpful, where that upgrade process is simplified for those experienced drivers.
Exactly. Okay, well, that was good conversation. Good information shared. Certainly want to thank the legislators and legislative staff that were able to be here today. It's always great to share information, and we both learn from both sides. So thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank you, Dave and Andre as well from, the state level for coming to our chapter and, advocating for all of us as well. So thanks to
Glad
everybody.
to be here.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Couldn't turn Pete Tunney down.
Mr. Strobe.
That's it.
Yeah, Mr. Strobe.
Mr. Strobe.
Claudine, do we know if our TransFinder folks have screen sharing? Because they are up next.
I will give it to them.
Awesome.
Hey,
We'll take
Pete,
off. Nice seeing everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
You.
hey, Pete, just to
See you
let
at the
you know,
conference. Don't forget conference registrations.
Yes.
Pete, just to let you know, I'm getting strobes on mine too, so you're not going to be alone.
Oh, good. All right, Grim. Thank you. I just want to do it like down south where it's wired up to the master switch. You don't have to worry about turning it on, off.
Problematic sometimes at sporting events.
Okay.
Brian, do you both have screen sharing? Are you all set?
Yeah, I think we're all set and,
Hi.
and definitely thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all here today. It's definitely clear from this morning that there's ongoing changes that have only been intensified by the pandemic. Many of these are not new, right? It's been a challenge for some time. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brian Kiefer. I'm with TransFinder. I'm account executive for Upstate New York. And for those I get to talk to on a regular basis, thank you for always reaching out to me. And of course, if you ever want to pick our brains about anything, whether or not you are or are not one of our clients, we love to learn. I mean, I think it was evident from our beginning conversation, just trying to get some information from Jeff and the rest of the group on how things operate. You guys have an interesting world, I guess is the way to put it. It never fits in a box. We do have a Dave Solicito on the line. He's one of our consultants. He's been with us for, I think it's 10 years now, Dave. He did run the account executive role for 5 of those, and the last 5 as a consultant. And so I'd like to take a moment to introduce him, and he's going to drive us through some of his presentation and facilitate some thoughts out of you and see what's been going on.
Great.
It's all you, Dave.
Great. Thanks, Brian. I don't know, can everybody see the screen all right? Can they see the little TransFinder school bus and the kid getting off? Or awesome, fantastic. Well, thank you all for the opportunity. I always enjoy, sitting in on these meetings. Try to be a sponge. Like Brian said, I've been here 10 years. I managed 19 states and all the international business for TransFinder, but being a Capital Region native, it's very exciting for me to be back in my hometown, and working with folks locally versus nationally and internationally. So it's been a real pleasure, and obviously listening to the conversations that go on today, familiar conversations, trying to keep bus drivers, trying to keep people employed, not losing drivers to other industries, brings to light the Dakotas during the shale oil boom. They were losing drivers after paying to have their CDLs done to go drive trucks for oil companies and making 6 figures doing it. And, how do we retain it? And I love what you guys were saying about some of the license restrictions. So very happy to do that. Obviously, I'm sure most of you know who TransFinder is. So I'm happy to talk about what we do specifically with some of NIAP, and some of the webinars that we've done over the last year or so, and working with you guys to really explore the industry. We look to be a technology partner, but all of the solutions, all of the systems, all of the things that we look to develop come directly from you folks and, our 2,000 clients nationwide. So the highlights, obviously looking at how we could help and how we could look at these webinars and do some technology and how we connect it all. Obviously, we're going to continue that going into the new year, and we've got that next webinar coming up next week. We're really excited to work through that and learn more. Some of the things we learned, right? And I heard a couple of them today. What are the two biggest challenges? I look at things like keeping students safely distanced with masks and enforcing seating charts and cleaning procedures and contact tracing. And I heard it this morning on, trying to overcome some of those fears of the new drivers coming on and overcome some of the fears of the industry as to why you might not want to drive a school bus. And I love the talk about monitors and looking into that. Community communication, right? Communicating what's going on. People see schools closing down because they don't have drivers to run the routes, or staffing issues, or just simply they're struggling to get around this pandemic. Obviously, route coverage and A and B schedules fall right into what we do as a routing software company, and working to make it easier for folks in transportation to be able to do it. Interesting question we always like to ask, and I always ask it when I'm on the phone with a prospective client, kind of, what are you doing differently? Why are we here? What can we help you with? And we hear interesting things, right? Things like asking drivers to help recruit, introducing parent apps, right? Communicating more with the public. Everybody's being asked to do more with less. How can we be more efficient? Guys, when I started 10 years ago, efficiency was all about saving money and saving routes and doing things. That's completely changed in the last 5 years. So it's the idea of changing that perception and looking at how do we do it by consolidating routes. Questionnaires, and we're going to talk about that a lot, right? Polling the public, finding out what people need, what their concerns are, is often a big ask. And really what we look to do from a partner perspective with TransFinder is we do believe the technology can link all these things. It can ease some of the challenges that people face. So, we work towards trying to learn from the experiences we have with you folks, the experiences we have nationwide. We talk about how do we make it easier, right? I tell folks all the time, I don't use the navigation in my truck to get from our headquarters in Schenectady out to my house in Westerlo. But if somebody else is coming out here to see me, they better have some sort of navigation. And the fact that, we have route sheets and things like that, we're looking at technology as you bring new people into the industry. Obviously, tablets, turn-by-turn directions, the ability to see who's getting on. We talk about the idea that because you've got routing software, a substitute or a brand new driver can see the kids that are supposed to get on at the stop. So we're trying to make it easier for folks to do that contact tracing and understand who should be getting on where. And obviously it all feeds back into the technology. So we're trying to make it easier for folks to get the results they need. Now, on top of that, we talk about the ability to have the routes and have the turn-by-turn direction. But one of the most exciting new things coming out is the idea that a driver could preview a route. You can run a route before it's your turn and you're sitting in the seat, maybe the day before, and see where the route is and get all the directions and see the types of things that they're going to be faced with as they go through. So we're excited, to work through it. And again, these features, this functionality is being developed based on the needs that we hear from you folks. So like Brian said, customer or not, if you have ideas, we're always open and listening. One of the other things that we're looking at, and we talked a little bit about the communication, the idea that it's more than just a parent app. People are surveying their parents just like we survey our clients. They want to see what people think. Are they planning on riding the bus? Do they have any concerns? What are their concerns and how do we address those? Well, one of the things that we looked at, and another tool in our arsenal, is it's called Form Finder. And it's a new idea that we're really trying to work with folks on. And we've used it at a couple things. And NIAP's going to be working with us on some of this as we go through. But the idea behind it, guys, is surveying and having people fill out forms. And one of the things that we look at, and I know myself personally doing this for 10 years and working with people, is we have to make it easy. You know, my CEO is all about technology, and I always tell him, listen, man, you got to make it as easy as possible or I'm not going to use it. So we started using things like QR codes for these forms. And the whole idea with the QR code is you just have it up there. People can scan it with their phone and it takes them right to the form for them to fill out. As you control what this form is and what you want to have on the form, you can control the red asterisk is how much of this you need to have filled out. So yeah, while we do it with our clients a lot, but I look at it from a public standpoint, from an employee standpoint. You want to survey your drivers. Here's the QR code, scan it. These are some questions, you know, multiple choice, different answers, different things. And the most important part about it is it lets you pull that back into the software so you can aggregate that data. You can see what's gone on with these things, what the answers were across the board, so that you can obviously address those by the need and by the complexity and how many people go there. One of the neat things, obviously, guys, we're routing software and mapping software. If you require the location, you can actually get XY coordinates on where this stuff was filled out. So we showed this here. This was at the last SDN conference out at the Peppermill. So you can see a lot of them were at the Peppermill casino. But we've seen this used for the public. When you survey the public, do you get one cul-de-sac that has the majority of the answers? Are you targeting the right areas with your forms and with your stuff? And just being able to see that is huge. Now, obviously, TransFinder is a national company. We like to see it across the world and see different things getting filled out in different spots. But, you know, we're excited for where this is going to go, because I do see efficiency. I do see the ability to consolidate routes being based on that ridership, and finding out from parents who's going to be riding and finding an easy way to do that is what we look to do. So basically, I kind of kept it short. I knew today's meeting was going to be a little long. I figured you guys had a lot to talk about, the legislative session. But hopefully with that, you know, you take that we're here from technology. And I'd love to hear, you know, what you guys think in some things that we can do, either through this session or through Brian and me. I'll put my information up there for you guys. And, you know, obviously look forward to working here in the Capital Region.
Thank you guys so much from TransFinder. And if anybody needs either one of their contact info, please reach out to me or Jerry or Claudine, or we will definitely get that for you. Does anybody have any questions for TransFinder? No, okay, guess not. At this time, I would like to just mention a couple things before we all go. Is Jeff still on, Jeff Wainwright? Where did he go?
He's still got a box there.
Okay.
Jeff, are you on?
He must be busy. I just want to mention the poster contest, that the deadline is coming up. I was hoping that Judy would be on, that she could give us more info on it, but I will reach out to her and get you the specs again for that. But please, if you haven't, the deadline for that is, I believe, January 20th. Also, again, if you haven't already nominated somebody for Employee of the Year, an SBDI award, a 19A certified examiner class, again, we are giving those away, awards away. So please make sure you email Al Karam your nominations. Jerry, do you want to talk about the winter workshop coming up? And
I think many of us left, so probably just a few that are on. The winter workshop is coming up. It's right around the corner in February. Just want to remind everybody to get registered. And if you haven't even gone on to register and you're due for your refresher, which I think I am, so I signed up so the conference is Thursday and Friday, but they're doing a CE refresher on Wednesday through it. So I did sign up for my refresher. So, and then there's also 20 participants. There's a class that you can sign up for as well on Wednesday for the proper installation of car seats. There's an organization coming in, and there will be, I think there's 20 openings for that class for the proper securement of car seats. So, just get on there and look around, and hopefully we'll see you all next month at the conference.
And if anybody has not gotten their letter yet for the SBDI refresher, I am pleased to announce it is completely online again, and there's no pre-session assignment. So kudos to everyone who, kind of raised some hell at SCD and everywhere. I know Jerry was with me on that, kind of asking them to not do that. So there's no
And
pre-session.
then all of a sudden SCD walked in. my
Yeah,
office
poor
a
Jerry
couple
got
weeks later.
audited right after that. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. That's good. There is a 50 question test that's open book, but there's no pre-session assignment. So that was pretty good. There is no February meeting. We never have a February meeting, and our March meeting, it looks like it's going to be virtual again. The firehouse is still not open. They're not opening until, as of right now, April 1st. So at this time, we're just going to kind of go like we did last year and play it by ear. We're going to hope to get in person at some point, but we may just have to stay virtual and do that if we're not able to. Hopefully we will be, though. And if anybody else has anything else they want to ask, discuss. If not, then have a great day, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.